Hi, I'm Frank DeMarco. I thought I would read a little piece out of Rita's World, Volume 2, and it's about making a successful transition from this life to the next part of our life, to the non-physical world. A woman had asked us a question, and she wanted to know, she said, yes, it's the successful part I want to ask Rita about. What is an unsuccessful transition and the consequences? How can we not carry with us leftover associations? And Rita said, this is a good illuminating question, and my answer is shaped partly by your own focus, Frank, that prevents you from actively remembering the context of the question. I said, not a bad thing, I hope. That's usually my situation. Well, the question of what would be good or bad directly leads to my answer. Good or bad, successful or unsuccessful, is always a matter of judgment, which means always a matter of context. My particular view is that a successful transition is one that allows all parts of a lived-out being to continue to function together after the bonds of the body are broken, or, to speak more plainly in other language, success is the new soul continuing to function as one unit in its new conditions of freedom from the 3D constraints that shaped and nurtured it. Your physical part of your life is the baby chick in the egg, and your life afterwards is the chick learning to function in a new, bewildering, enchanting world beyond the previous safe but confining world it had known. The struggle to emerge from the egg is what develops the strength to fly in the world to come. No chick lives as a chick and then a chicken while still remaining in the confines of the shell in which it developed. But not all chicks survive the process and live on. Some die in the shell or emerging from it, and in that case their components, the physical elements of the chick's body in our analogy, return to the earth and of course are used again in one way or another. An unsuccessful transition fails to hold the pieces together. It is, to change analogies, something like the mentally ill, whose various constituting parts do not communicate or exist in a state of perpetual contention. And I said, so when we do retrievals, meaning someone in the body talking to someone outside the body who's sort of confused and doesn't know where they're going, it's a matter of context and viewpoints, as I said, but from here it looks this way. Let's take me. I live a long life that develops many of my potentialities, but of course not all or anything like all. We are created with an overplus of opportunities for the very particular purpose of allowing and developing, almost of forcing, the continuous exercise of free will. This does two things. It enables us to choose what we are to become by choosing to manifest this rather than that. It also bonds the various elements in the way that the chick's struggle to emerge from the egg develops the muscles it will need to fly. I live my life without suppressing my awareness of any parts of myself. She's saying this as a theoretical, and she says, in practice, of course, this is an impossibility. Or, I suppress all awareness of any other parts of myself, which is scarcely more possible. Or, as is true for nearly everybody, I become conscious of some things while remaining unconscious of others to a various degree. Here's a quote. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will shape your life and you will call it fate. That's a quote from Carl Jung that I often use, as she well knew. Also the apocryphal Gospel of Thomas. If you bring forth what is within you, it will save you, and if you don't, it will destroy you. I said, now, did you know that independently, or did you pilfer it from my own memories? And she said, as our friend Dave used to say, guilty, Your Honor, but I'm afraid our hour is up. And I said, can you answer the second part of Suzanne's question? I haven't finished answering the first part, but no hurry. Productive questions lead to interesting journeys, as you should well remember. Oh, I do, and I assure you others are enjoying this journey with us. That was the plan. I said, be well. She said, I should say that to you, but you might take it as nagging. And I said, I'm smiling. Till next time, then. And that's a good example of the way we interact.
Hi, I'm Michael Peter Langevin, and today, for the first time on video as well as audio, I'm interviewing Frank DeMarco about his book, Rita's World 2. Frank, it's great to be with you.
It's great to have an interview where you don't start off by saying, here's my great author.
Well, he writes some wonderful books, Frank. I can't help myself.
I appreciate it.
Frank just did a wonderful reading of part of Rita Warren 2, where she speaks of transition. Frank, can you just tell us a little bit about why transitioning from this 3D world to life after death is important?
Yeah, okay. If you have a whole lifetime in 3D and you're living by 3D rules because you have to, that's what you get used to. But you're experiencing the outer world through your senses. When you die, your senses cease to work. You know, the body is done. All right? You're what we call dropping the body. Now, how do you perceive what's going on? You almost are in a situation of a newborn baby where you have to learn again, what's going on here? Where am I? Who am I? What am I? And that can be traumatic for some people, but if they're prepared, it's less traumatic. And if they're really prepared, it's seamless.
Well, let's talk about that. Prepared. How does one live a life that prepares for afterlife?
I'm going to tell you the answer, but it's going to sound like I didn't say anything. Because it's one of those things where it's so simple that people are going, no, it can't be that easy. And the simplicity is this. Live your life just the way Jesus said, where the inside and the outside are the same thing. You know, instead of pretense and hypocrisy, and particularly instead of all your attention on the outside world, no attention to the inside world. If you do that, that's almost a guarantee you're going to have trouble when it comes time to transition over. But if, on the other hand, you live a life that is sincere, especially if it's outgoing, you know, there's a reason for kindness and generosity and those things, because it's getting beyond yourself, and you're going to need to do that. You're going to need to be used to having not a firm sense of boundaries. This is me, that's the rest of the world. That doesn't help you when you've lost your body, and all of a sudden you're part of a large community and you don't really know where the boundaries are. Okay, so the shortest answer is stay in touch with all of yourself from the first, and you won't have trouble getting in touch with the rest of yourself at the end.
So it sounds like what you're saying, if I live in the material world and I live for material things alone, or I live for my image alone, I'm not going to do too good when it comes to being without my body.
Yeah, but as I hear you say that, it's easily misunderstood. I'm not saying if you're selfish, you're going to be punished. And I'm not saying if you love living in the physical world, that's a detriment and there's something wrong with you. That isn't it at all. You take somebody like Hemingway, he was extremely sensual. He was also extremely intuitive. So he was in touch, I would say, with both sides. The key, I think, is awareness. As long as you're aware, you can do pretty much anything you want. It is anything you do, though, that shuts down your awareness is going to make it difficult when awareness is all you have.
Okay, I can see that. So in what you just read, you speak of consciousness, and if I'll paraphrase, but Rita basically says we're giving a lot of potential, and if it's impossible to be conscious of all of them and manifest all of them.
That's right.
But it's also pretty impossible not to manifest any of them or be conscious of any of them. But why are we given that challenge between I get conscious of these things, I develop these skills, you those things, those skills?
Well, see, that's a matter of viewpoint. You can look at it and say, wait a minute, why is this set up to frustrate us? But the other way of looking at it, which I think is more accurate, is you have this terrific amount of gifts possible. You can't choose them all, but what a great thing to choose from. So it would be like a painter saying, why do I have more than three colors? Well, the answer is because maybe you like these colors better. You know,
maybe you have the potential to paint an amazing picture with more choices.
You know, this isn't directly in what you said, but the guys have said repeatedly before Rita, and of course she agrees with it.
The guys upstairs.
This is a non-specific way of talking about anybody in the non-physical.
Okay.
Because you can get in a lot of trouble making definitions that seem very precise but really don't mean anything.
So many do.
Well, it's an easy trap to fall into. But and then speaking of traps, I've now forgotten what I was saying.
The question was, we're given so many paints, so many possibilities, and we can't be conscious of all of them.
Oh, now I remember. What they have said is you're here in free will. You're here, in 3D because of free will. You create yourself, and you are creating yourself moment by moment just by what you choose or by what you refuse to choose. And if your choices are consistent in one direction, that's what you become. If they're inconsistent, that's still what you become. If they're consistent in the opposite direction, it's what you become. And if you refuse to choose, you still, which is the worst of all possible ways to choose by default, you still are creating what you're going to be at the end of your life. And that is our gift to the non-physical world, what we are. Because when you go to the other side, you're not a statue, you're not a portrait, you're a living mind that's part of a larger living mind. And people, I think, either never heard it or tend to forget it. That's what this is here for. That's what the 3D world was created for.
So that we're bringing more of what we learn and become to the larger over there?
Yes, sure. If you spend your lifetime here in 3D under these high pressure conditions, and you form what the guys have sometimes called our minds habit systems.
Right.
Okay, so if you form a habit system that then continues to function in the non-3D world, and is now, it's a new resource that's been added to the universe, really. I mean, it sounds a little overblown, but the universe isn't finished and it doesn't stop, and we are consistently, but we're continually feeding new minds into the non-3D. That's what the 3D was created to make possible.
Okay, we're going to have to do more interviews on that, but that's a wonderful place to stop, I think.
Okay.
That was just beautiful. Thank you, Frank.
You're welcome.